a limited liability corporation, an S Corp, or a C Corp. So we're going to talk about each of these. We talked a little bit about the liability. We talked about taxation, a little bit more about taxation. With the LLC and the S Corp, you have what's called pass-through taxation. Do you guys, who knows what that means? Okay. Pass-through taxation is when you are being taxed, when the profits of the corporation are being, the tax base for that is being passed through to the shareholders and taxed at the individual rate. Okay? One time only, not at the corporate and then the individual. It passes through the corporation to the individual, taxed at the individual rate. That's a really, really good thing. You want pass-through taxation if you're in a situation to be able to have that option. When you go to law school, you learn that when you're forming an entity, you're going to be thinking about liability and taxation. The part you don't learn about is that you're also going to be thinking about what you're going to be doing raising money. And that's a business reality, is that when it comes time to form your entity, you want to be able to look out and say, what are my plans as far as raising money? My business reality is that my product's going to require X dollars of investment. To get that, it might, if it's minimal, you may know you're never going to have to go for VC funding. Great, wonderful actually. But if you look out and you say, I know that in the next X number of months, I'm going to have to go out for VC dollars, you're very likely going to want to go, you're going to structure it differently, and I'll explain why, but you'll be headed for a C Corp, most likely. So that's one of the business realities, is that when you decide entity formation, and if you've got a strategic plan laid out and can see where you're going to be headed in terms of raising dollars, then that's going to impact the decisions you make around decisions you make around entity formation. So I'm going to address S Corp quickly, and part of the reason I'm not going to spend a lot of time here is there's three major things to know about it. Now this is pass-through taxation, but it's only allowable shareholders, not more than 100 shareholders, and only one class of stock. What do you guys see as the problem here? Does anyone recognize it? If you're going to go out for some significant dollars, what might be a problem here?
One
class of stock. You're right. One class of stock. You've got sophisticated investors. They're going to ask for preferred shares. So this is not a good tool in that circumstance. And it's a reason why the S Corp is fit. There are certain circumstances where it's a good fit, but generally speaking, that one class of stock takes it off the table for a lot of people. Okay? LLC versus a C Corp. Both offer limited liability. One huge distinction, the LLC is a beautiful creature. It's relatively new. It's made to be flexible. You can do so much with it that you can't do in any other entity. Jerry likes to say, he has a phrase he says which is kind of funny. I've heard him say it to people when they're deciding what entity they want. He goes, we can make you a complete dictator for the entirety of your company in an LLC. But that's not the case when you're like a C Corp. There are certain restrictions on what you can do. LLC has a lot of flexibility and gives you a lot of ownership of how your company operates. Okay? No pass-through taxation for the C Corp. It's going to get taxed at the corporate level. It's going to get taxed at the individual level. You still might not have a choice. You might need to go to a C Corp. Do you guys know why? Funding, the VCs. Okay, VCs like the C Corp. And a question I often get actually on C Corps, and that's around where you incorporate. A lot of people say, I hear I have to be in Delaware. And do you guys know why that is? Why?
VCs want you to be in
They want you to be in Delaware. VCs like it if you're, they want you to be a C Corp, and they want you to get set up in Delaware. And one of the main reasons for that is that Delaware has an amazing body of law built up around corporations. And so it's very predictable. VCs know what's going to happen if some issue comes into dispute. Everything's very predictable. There are courts that are dedicated to addressing the issues that affect corporations. And so they spend their day in and day out dealing with those issues. And so they don't, whereas, if you contrast it to, say, an Oregon court, your judge might be hearing one entirely different type of law question and then dealing with a corporation and isn't as knowledgeable perhaps. Perhaps, I'm not saying necessarily, but it may not be as knowledgeable on the breadth of the issues that's before them. And so VCs love the predictability of what they get from Delaware and just the expanse of laws built around corporations.
I've heard that Arizona and Hawaii are going after this business.
Are they?
Yeah.
And I know Nevada has a little bit.
My accountant was like, Delaware, whatever, you can do it a lot of places.
Yeah.
Delaware is established, and maybe the VCs have some predilection, but from an accounting standpoint, my very experienced accountant sort of like, it doesn't matter.
Well, and I'll tell you, there are attorneys in my office who will tell you, until the VC is at your door, or you're at the VC's door, don't worry about Delaware. It's a 24, we can have the application in within instantly, and you can say we're in the process, and that's an acceptable answer to a question from a VC. So anyway, that's just a couple of points, but that's kind of what gets people shoved into the C corporation status, where there's double taxation, there's huge complexities to what you have to do to be compliant. There's associated costs with those complexities because of the accounting and the legal, everything that comes with it. It's a lot.